Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today we are doing a sacrilege. We are orchestrating Debussy without his consent. I'm just kidding. It's okay to orchestrate dead composers' music as long as you studied some orchestration, and it can be a nice way for you to first exercise your orchestration skills, and secondly, to give a new life to a work that was made for a certain instrumentation. So today we're looking at two very different examples. So both of them are piano pieces originally. The first one is for a smaller ensemble, and the second one is orchestrated for a large orchestra. But when you're orchestrating Debussy, very delicate music, do you need a lot of instrument to orchestrate and to convey what Debussy meant in his piano pieces? Debussy's orchestration style is very much like Mozart a little bit. It's really not the same music, of course, but Mozart had this approach of minimalism, this kind of idea that less is more. And this is something that is very characteristic of Debussy as well, but in quite a different way though. We do see some of his approach to orchestration as some very dense textures and a lot of instruments. And even for his piano music, a lot of his piano music is very, very virtuoso and a lot of notes and a lot of pedal. But there's something in Debussy's music, and it's very characteristic of the symbolism period, is that as soon as there's a lot of expression, a lot of intensity in the music, it calms down really suddenly. It's not like Wagner a little bit before the period of Debussy, with long phrases of intensity. Debussy really went slowly and carefully with the expression. You can really feel this finesse, and you really have to exemplify this into your orchestration when you're working with Debussy's music. Now, before you dive in, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I invite you to take a look at my subscription model, which allow composers to have personal feedback from me and to have access to the scores I'm presenting in my videos as well. If you want more details, I'll put the link down in the description below. Now let's go and have a look at the examples I have for you today. All right, so the first example I'm going to use is the piece Rêverie from Claude Debussy. It's a piano piece and it's quite pretty. It's quite well known as well. It's a very soft and expressive piece of music, especially at the beginning, and that eventually opens up a little bit more. So the arrangement I'm proposing today is this first page, and then eventually up to here in the second page, just right before the pianissimo here. So let's listen to this piano version first. It's an arrangement I was commissioned. I did a series of arrangements for a kids podcast that was featuring a lot of classical music, and they wanted to work with the Orchestre Métropolitain here in Montreal, but we only had a small group, so I had to make arrangements, and they wanted to feature a lot of different types of music, and this piece came up in one of the stories that was told in the podcast. So this piece is originally for piano, and I had to design what kind of arrangement I would be doing. I had access to a string quartet, which was my first thought for this. And eventually I was wondering what other instruments could work for this. So firstly, to show you how I approach orchestrating Debussy's music. This example is good because it just features mainly the string, and it seemed to me that it was perfect for this, because if you look from here, we have this one voice here, we have another voice here, which is actually the arpeggio going up here, so this is kind of one gesture. We got this low note that is held. So to me, there was already this kind of polyphony that would really fit the string quartet. And eventually for these arpeggios, these big arpeggios, there's not many instruments that can do all this, like maybe the bassoon. The cello would be good for this. But I thought with a string quartet, we could give some of the notes to like the cello, and then some of the notes to the viola, and then some of the rest of the notes for the second violin. And this upper line will be played by the first violin. So already I had like a little plan looking at the score, but then I had access to woodwinds, to brass instruments, percussion even. So I wonder what else could support this? What else could support the strings, the string quartet in this? And when you're asking this kind of question, you want to look at the character. So pianissimo, very soft and very expressive, and it's kind of they say sans lenteur. It means without no slowness. Is that the word? So not slowly. So you wanted to feel something was flowing, you know. And this is the kind of effect that you have with these held notes. There's a lot of upbeat in this. Like this note is not playing on the downbeat. So by listening to this, I felt like a kind of warmth to it, a certain warmth, especially after the beginning around here. And then when it's a meno piano, it means less piano, so a little bit louder. So from here, I was hearing a horn actually doing some of these notes, maybe da 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 da, or maybe a held note. I wasn't sure at first, but I just felt this kind of warmth coming in at this place. And even here, in this second phrase, which is mezzo forte, and this dream also, the horn gives this sense of something that is distant. The horn is always associated in the repertoire as the horn in the forest, so a horn from hunting, actually. So something very distant that you hear. So the idea of the distant dream and the distant rêverie made me choose the horn for this to assist. So now let's go look at my arrangement. We got the second violin here that is doing this pattern with the upbeats. So it's this one line, just the second violin, and then this held note, the B flat, is played by the alto here. And simply this upper line, first violin, there's not much else to say with this first part because it's so simple. Debussy's music is often very delicate, and you don't want to put like doublings like the horn here or something with the low G or something. You want to leave a lot of space, and you already have this note, this G here, that fills the gap between this higher part. Everything musically is there. You don't have to add octaves anywhere. There's no need for that. It's piano, and it shouldn't be very dense. So very simple at first. And then at measure 9, this is the part I was referring to when the horn comes in. This is the actual segment here. So we see the cello comes in and do the low F like this. And then this second note coming in, that's the viola. That's the viola here. That's going to hold the note. You see the notes are held, the F and the C. It's very important for them to stand out in this. So you have to have cello and viola here. And after that, this little part can be played by the second violin as well. So this is what I did here. Now this C, E is something new from the score. This is something I allowed myself there. I was not necessarily trying to, be completely true to Debussy. It's kind of unusual instrumentation, the string quartet with the horn. But for the sake of this podcast and what was needed for this, I added this C here, which is actually from the chord, and you'll see it ties up very well after that with the D, and you even have this little C and D colliding together, and it creates something very interesting here. And now the second part is what's most interesting to me. This is the longer arpeggio here. Da, 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 da. And this is when I explained earlier, I'm dividing the arpeggio. So do-do-doom, and then ta-da-dum, and then ta-da-da-da-dum. These are actually the notes that begins. There's always passing the note from one to each other. And I decided to hold the D here, just because it's the root note. And I also felt that with this, when you have this on the piano, you actually give some pedal. There's not written at all the pedal here, but you need some of it to tie this part together. So if we see what I did exactly with this, it's actually a 2-bar arpeggio pattern that is repeated, and it's going up and going down again, da 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 da, and then right at the end there's the G here, so that's a different chord. That's the G minor chord, and doing pretty much the same thing here. Repeated again here in mezzo forte, a little bit louder. And for the end, again, the same pattern is exactly. It's very simple music in a way because it's a pattern that is repeated, and then again another time here, and then only here da 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 ba 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 ba. Here it becomes a little bit different. And for this here, I chose to have long notes for the cello here to really mark the harmonic rhythm here. The harmonic rhythm here is every 2 beats, and you also have some extra notes here that we didn't have here really. So this gave me a little bit more to work with. I actually gave these to my second violin, and actually if you see my second violin here, I added this note here, the D. It's not in the part really. It's actually this here. Yeah, I added this. It's part of the chord, and the direction is fine. There's nothing disturbing. This is going down. This is going up. Inverted movement, right? And I'm having the other 2 instruments here doing this arpeggial thing. Actually, most of the work here is done by the viola. If you see my second violin, it comes down, playing long notes from this melody here that is actually going to the horn. So the horns gives a small response, P da 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 dum dum, right at the end here. I know this is all supposed to be one long gesture, but I thought this would give a nice break to the listeners. So let's go have a listen at this new version now. And also note that I have a repetition here, but actually for the playback I'm giving you, it goes directly to the end here. And actually this held chord is not in the original. It's just that the cue that we add for the podcast, it had to end here, and I decided to end on a D minor chord here. So let's have a listen. Now I love in this version really all the strings goes from one to the other. It really have this fluid kind of thing, and also there's a element of spatialization that's added, because with the piano it's just one instrument doing it, but now there's like the sound is moving around from left to right. If you're listening to a recording, or in this case, I give some panning to the string, so you get this kind of sense. And the horns sitting behind, I think it just ties really well. These just punctuate this kind of ending of phrase. And notice here also, I'm doubling the melody for this second part here, just an octave lower, and adding some of the notes here. It's a little bit different, but yeah, these are not from the original piano part. These are actually things that I added. So you shouldn't be scared to do this when you're arranging a piece. I mean, unless your job is to do exactly as Debussy would have done, then maybe doing a lot more research. But in my case, I just needed to feature these instruments and to have them play something interesting, something that was inspired and based on this original piece. So then finding a nice line to add in, even if Debussy would not have done exactly that, maybe he would have proof of this. Who knows? But this line is pretty cool. La mi la si do. It's very simple, very easy to play for the horn. So a pretty interesting first example for us today. Okay, so now let's have a look at this other piece called Des pas sur la neige. So footsteps on the snow. Now this is a famous exercise for orchestrators. I know for a fact that this is the exercise they give in most advanced like doctoral program and university program or advanced orchestral programs, conservatory as well. And this is actually an exercise that I did while I was doing my master degree at the University of Montreal. So what you're going to see is actually what I came up with back then, and I'm going to explain my choices and explain maybe why some things might be better than other and something might be less good. So let's have a listen to these first 7 bars that I orchestrated. So the original piano part first. So it's triste et lent, so slow and sad and slow. Expressif et douloureux, so expressive and painful. So it's not an easy piece. And here there's this very specific text. Ce rythme doit avoir la valeur sonore d'un fond de paysage triste et glacé. So that means this rhythm must have the sonic value, the sonic rhythmic value, something like this, of the background of a landscape that is sad and frosty and icy, glacé. It's gonna be pretty depressing, but it's a very interesting exercise for this. It's pianissimo, it's sad, and it's got this very specific kind of texture. So, and they talk about the rhythm. The rhythm must have this sonic value that makes us think of this landscape that is sad and icy. So we when we orchestrate this, we really must think about this. How can we have this feeling of first expression in this upper line? Who can have this form of expression in this register and in this dynamic as well? Now this rhythm here, how can we recreate this ta-da, 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 and make us think of this something that is sad and icy? So first thing I'm thinking is this lower part must have no vibrato at all. So there's not going to be vibrato here. And even if we can choose an instrument that naturally doesn't have a vibrato, and I'm thinking about the harp, because I know I put the harp there, then it's pretty good. And also this D that is held, that is repeated quite a lot until here, it has to be equal and always the same. So I think this is the note that I put for the harp here. And this here, this Ré, mi, fa, Ré, mi, fa. There's this dynamic thing here. So you have to take that into account. It might just be something that is relevant for the piano. But yes, otherwise these first 4 bar are really, really need to be soft and very delicate, very like you don't put a lot of things into this. You might I've seen some people orchestrate this with just like one instrument for this and one instrument for this line, one instrument here, and that's it. Up until the 5th bar here, where we change register, it goes a lot deeper, and this feels more like a string orchestra coming in, the whole string orchestra for this. So a little bit more warmth here. It's actually strange because they say something sad and icy, and this is super warm. But yes, this exercise I'm suggesting to you today is up until here. Actually, I'm stopping here just so we can focus on this simple beginning. So really, we got this first section here and then this second section here that needs to be treated differently. But once we have like the pattern for this beginning, I suggest you keep it all for the 4 bars. Some people might think, okay, we have a section of a melody here, and then we're gonna change instrument because there's a silence and there's No. This really must be played by the same instrument because it's part of the same section. And really, this is kind of something that is beginning, and the silence here is actually just a pause, something that is like, imagine something expressive and painful you're trying to say or trying to express, but you have to breathe between. It's same thing here. Yeah, there's breath, 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 and then you're attaining something and then falling down again. So it's a very dramatic piece, I believe. Now, before we get into my orchestration of this, and it's actually going to be for full orchestra. The second line, we can wonder: should we continue something that we started here, or should we really clearly do something else, like a new texture? It's a good question, and I'll show you what I come up with for this. So here you see my orchestration for this. It's again pretty simple. We have one flute. It's just a one flute. We have one clarinet. We have one horn, a harp, and then the strings. So before we talk about it, let's have a listen to this whole arrangement. So we see the first 4 bars. Actually, the melody, I gave it to the flute. This kind of icy, expressive, and it really fit the flute, in my opinion, for this. The flute has this very airy kind of sound. So when you imagine this sad and icy landscape, you imagine some wind in the sound. Now this Ré, mi, fa, Ré, mi, fa, only for the clarinet here. So that's my clarinet. That's my flute. And now the D, the L D. Who's got this? A lot of other people, actually. And this is interesting because it's a very simple orchestration move. And you might wonder, how come there's so many people here? Well, they all play pianissimo. They all play pianissimo. The cellos are playing here this tremolo, but they are playing with a mute, so concertini. They're playing like pianissimo to pianissimo. So this super behind. So you won't really hear them, actually. You shouldn't be hearing them, really. The horn is actually the one that's holding this note. It's the main character or instrument, the timbre for this here. And what the harp is doing is just punctuating these beginnings. So very simple orchestration, but sometimes it's just really all you need for this kind of very delicate orchestration. And it's very important to know how to do this, and what to avoid as well. Like there's no trumpet here, there's no trombone, there's no timpani, there's not even like oboe, there's no bassoon. I avoided these 2 instruments because they cannot play as soft as the flute and the clarinet. Flute and clarinet can really blend in this kind of thing. The horn gives this kind of distant sound, the same kind of like distant sound I was talking about in the other arrangement. The harp can play super soft, and then these groups of cellos, concertini is always softer, and then harmonics is just really blending behind. But the fact that it's tremolo, it just gives this little friction in the sound, so this little frigid kind of icy sound. But now let's look at this second part. So let's see the melody first. So la, si, do, Ré, mi, do, la, sol, mi, do. This little thing here is actually played both by the flute and the clarinet. And also the first violin is playing this. Notice that they all are with mutes, all concertini. So the strings are really there to just give a little bit of support for the other instruments. We have the harp that's doing these lower chords, lower chords done here. We got the horns also participating into this. And actually, the horn should have a little crescendo. And then this re, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, that's always repeated. That's still repeated from the clarinet part. This is done by the second violins. So the strings are taking over this whole part. But again, they are playing with Sardinis, so they are super supportive, super behind, and super delicate. Now, this is the part where I'm not sure about. The flute and the clarinet doubling for this here, as well as the violin. Notice that the violin is stopping right at the end here with the other strings and leaving the flute and the clarinet to finish this line in a diminuendo. This is actually very anticlimactic. You got this big crescendo and then stop, and then really this line just falling alone. So I really had to just leave something very simple. I would have liked to maybe just have the clarinet here to end, because this is really low for the flute. So maybe this is actually a better option. I'll actually put my final playback without the flute. This small adjustment I'm making from myself when I was a student back 15 years ago. So now let's listen again to this arrangement in the light of my comments, and as well with this ending with only the clarinet. So back to as I was saying earlier, Debussy really had this approach to minimalism, which can also inspire you as a composer. We've been having so many romantic, post-romantic influence composer, even today, still doing a lot of orchestration, still doing huge sounds and trying to find the biggest sound possible. And this is something that has to do with music for entertainment, action, advertisement that needs to be punchy. There's not a lot of place for soft orchestrations. So what I'm saying is that maybe if you want to define yourself from all composers out there, whatever kind of music you're doing and whatever the purpose is for it, learning about simple orchestration moves can really maybe help you find your personality as a composer. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like the content, there's the option to give super likes, which are a little tip for me. And if you're a composer and an enthusiast about music theory and composition, I invite you to go look at my subscription options. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.